Yes, hello and welcome to episode 336 of the Total Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. As always, before we start, a huge thank you to our TSP Patreon community because we couldn't make the show each week without your loyal support. Welcome to Daniel Jewell, who's joined our TSP supporter tier on Patreon. And also hello to Phil Osgood, who's joined the same tier through YouTube. Thanks again. We really appreciate your support. So coming up this week on the podcast, Championship football is back on Saturday. Saints versus Swansea is the lunchtime kickoff. Going to preview that one very soon with the help of Luke from the Swans Cast Podcast. We've also got the Ross Stewart injury news to discuss later. And it's been a decent week for the women's team. 2 wins over Portsmouth for us to reflect on with some glee. My name is Martin Stark. Joining me this week, Steve Grant is back. He's the owner of Saints Web. Glenda LaCour is writer of the blog League One -10. And George Rees-Julian is Southampton reporter for the Daily Echo. And George was at Fratton Park this afternoon for the 7-goal thriller. So we will get into that very soon, I promise. But first, the latest international break is almost over. Saints are back in action on Saturday lunchtime with the visit of Swansea City to St Mary's. Joining us to preview the game is Luke from the Swans Cast Podcast. Welcome along, Luke. I was checking earlier, last time we spoke, we were talking about your new manager, Luke Williams. We were heading for the Premier League. We're now below you in the table, and I understand that he's working at Bristol Airport. So quite a lot has happened since you've last been on. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been all right. It's just a story of being a Swans fan, really. You've just described there. It's a lot of change in short space of time every time we probably speak. So I get used to it, I guess. But a lot of exciting things have happened to us as well the last couple of months. I'm sure we get into all of that now.
Well, do you want to start with Snoop Dogg and Luka Modric? Then let's start with the fun stuff. Let's get that out of the way first, shall we? Then we'll chat about the football.
Yeah, well, obviously a little bit out of the blue. We had an ownership change back in November last year, I want to say it was, where the chairman at the time, Andy Coleman, led a consortium of other Americans and some other people that are involved as well to buy out the previous American regime, who were not very popular. So that went down well. However, it was kind of like under the radar, quite quiet. We didn't really know an awful lot. And because the chairman was already our chairman who led it, we didn't know how much change there actually was. We were hoping for the best, of course, but kind of a case of time will tell. Our January transfer window after that was very, very poor, which was very in line with the previous regime. So people started thinking the worst of this ownership change, like, oh, it's just more the same. It's just different names at the top and all the rest of it. However, the consortium that was led by Andy Coleman then proceeded to sack him as chairman after that poor showing in January. He, by all accounts, isn't a football man, came in, did the best job that he could, but isn't a football man. And I think it didn't work out for those reasons. He's still got a ownership in the club. He's just not chairman anymore. So they brought in another person in that role. But then the exciting news started to come in, and Luka Modric came in 5% majority shareholder, and later down the line, Snoop Dogg as well. So Modric come in for the football side of things, if you want. So he's probably more of a reasonable voice in the boardroom. And Snoop Dogg's there to try and grow a reputation and financial sort of opportunities, I guess. So that's one of the issues we have at Swansea, especially geography related as well, where we just can't generate the funds perhaps some other clubs can across the UK. And I guess from Snoop Dogg's perspective, he liked the Wrexham story, and yeah, he's ended up coming to us to kind of do his own version of it in a different way. He's not quite the majority owners they are up in Wrexham, but that's where his interest has come from, essentially. If you go back and do some research, he was talking about trying to do something similar, and the names that he was mentioning at the time was like Celtic or something. Obviously, that didn't happen, but we've gone out and got him, essentially. There were some people within the club who obviously looking for that sort of investment, but they went out and got both Modric and Snoop Dogg, who were then on the other side looking to invest. So it wasn't a case of necessarily they came to us. We kind of did make it happen, but I think for me, that's quite exciting that the club's going out and looking for these avenues to try and grow in a different way. And I think personally, going into the future of football, we're probably going to see more and more of it across the football landscape. So you could say it's a good initiative and being forward thinking as a club. And I hope that it does pay off then on the football pitch.
Has he been to a game yet, or is he waiting for a Birmingham game or a Wrexham game? You're not going to see him just yet.
I think it's Wrexham just before Christmas. It's like 19th of December or something. I think by all accounts, that's the first one he's going to be coming to. He said he's definitely coming soon, but that's the one that's circulating the rumour mill. So does make sense.
Are you a little bit apprehensive about the whole thing, or do you just kind of like, do you know what? Let's just welcome it with open arms and it'll be what it is?
I think we needed something. Like whatever we were doing the last couple of years, it hasn't really worked. Being in a downward trajectory, struggling to reinvest in the squad. And if this is how they can change that, then I'm all for it, to be honest. And it has definitely raised the profile already. There's definitely other things coming from it. They're making their own beer. There's merch stuff coming out alongside his record label or something. We haven't quite, hasn't been announced yet, but the manager's been wearing this hoodie for weeks now with this Death Row Records ex Swansea City all over it that people are waiting to get their hands on. So I think it's going to be a lot of commercial opportunity like that. And obviously he's going to tap into the big American market, I guess, then as well, like Wrexham have. I'm hoping to catch up with someone later in the year to see if there's been any impact. So maybe I'll have more on that next time we chat. But if it can, any commercial gain that we can get from it is a positive at the end of the day. And the summer window we've just had does look like the new ownership is more serious at reinvesting and spending money on the playing squad. There was a lot of money spent, a lot more than we are used to, and then a lot of quality as well with the players brought in. So far, so good. I think the signs, they're going in the right direction. And I think you've got to respect the risk and try new things, even if it doesn't pay off, when you can see the intent is there.
Let's chat a little bit about the football then and the start to the season, because you're 12th, I think, with 12 points, 1 point more than us at the moment. But it's been quite, it seems to me the games have been quite open. You scored a few going forward, but clean sheets have been a bit few and far between so far. Yeah,
clean sheets have been a miss, but I wouldn't say we're necessarily weak defensively. I think we've got some issues, especially with set pieces, that I think we need to get on top of, that have cost us quite a few times this season. And the other thing I think is a bit of a trend, perhaps in football, and we seem to be one of the worst for it. At least perhaps I'm being biased, but this new added time stuff that's massively apparent now, where there's 8-9 minutes at the end of every game, seems to like really affect us at the end of matches. Like we're not holding on a few occasions, and we conceding in like 97 minutes or something like that, like we did against Birmingham, when you think we're going to see this through, whether that's to get a point or to get 3 points. And as a result, if you go back any other season before now and ended the game when they probably would have 93, 94 minutes, we probably would have had quite a few more points on the board. And I'm not sure whether that's a trend at the moment or just something that we're getting used to with this new added time business, because I saw a stat in the Premier League, I think it was the last weekend just gone, there was like 12 goals or something scored in 90 plus minutes, which shows perhaps it's a bit of a trend of football getting used to this new amount of added time, which I think is something worth looking into perhaps at the end of the season. I think teams are not used to having to sort of defend and hold on so much in that last closing stage of the game, where teams usually throw everything at them. Usually it's throwing everything at them for a couple of minutes, but now it's like 10 minutes. But yeah, we haven't dealt with that very well.
It's the keeper rule change, I think, for me that's had the biggest impact this season, where the 8-second thing, where the referee is actually counting it out when you can see it. We benefited from it massively on the opening day against Wrexham, where Danny Ward, we kept pinging the ball straight into his hands, and he couldn't go down and go on his knees and take 20 seconds getting up and then kind of pretending to hoof it and then having another go at it. He had to release it straight away, and all he was doing was hoofing the ball straight back to us, straight back to our centre back's feet, and we could then go again. So I think that's where that's come from. It's increased.
Doesn't make sense.
That's that sort of ball in play time. Sort of on average by a good 2 or 3 minutes per game, which just makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think with the games, all of our games are very tight. They're basically 1-goal margins, or you're drawing. So there's always something to play for. And I think when there's always something to play for, both those things we just mentioned mean there's a lot on the line. And then the last periods of the game, we've benefited from it. I think maybe once we scored a late goal. Can't remember who it was against now, but might have actually been in the cup against Forest. But yeah, so I think there's some learning still within the squad. It's quite a few new players in there as well. The other side of the pitch, though, going forward, I think we've got a lot more work to do there. We're not the most creative. Our XG is probably not on the positive side of the league table. We've been quite clinical, maybe you could say, in regards to the chances that we've made and put away. Don't get me wrong, there's
can we swap, please?
Been some that we've missed, but we don't create an awful lot of chances. But then we put ourselves in a good position leading the game, for example. So I'm not sure whether it's the case of us going off the boil after we get a lead 1-0 up and then we all of a sudden stop going to try and get a second. I think we're a little bit guilty of that, but then also guilty of perhaps not creating enough in general. But that's somewhere that the manager is definitely speaking about and looking to work on. But you probably notice that when we do play, that we're not necessarily creating an abundance of chances.
I'm just fascinated by this clinical thing that you talk about. So how are you kind of like setting up and playing at the moment? What in terms of like lineup formation, that kind of thing? What are we going to expect on Saturday lunchtime?
Yeah, so we're still kind of like Swansea. We'll still try and keep the ball, but it's nowhere near as much as perhaps when we spoke about Luke Williams last time we spoke, or Russell Martin in the past as well, which I'm sure you all know fully well about. It's nowhere near that sort of level. Alan Sheehan has openly spoken about he doesn't want to be known as a manager that just keeps the ball. He'd rather be known as a manager that has more sort of impetus in attack, which has come in for his own criticism based on what I just said about us not necessarily creating that much. So that's caused a bit of a conflict in the fan base who say, well, you don't keep the ball, you don't create enough, so what are you doing? Which kind of leads me on to say, like, it's not as obvious to say what our game plan is. We do like to keep control of the ball. We're quite intense when it comes to pressing off the ball, trying to win it back. And they flood the midfield, and they tend to try and go out wide to create a lot of the opportunities. But not always does the ball come into the box in a way that's dangerous, I guess. We've only got one striker because we play in 4-3-3. And it's a flat 3 as well. There's not really an attacking midfielder there. And I think maybe that's part of our issue when it goes to the attack and lack of opportunities. That had made us quite rigid in defence. Going to the end of last season when Alan Sheehan first took over, he got us more clean sheets from February to the end of the season than we had managed in the first, whatever it was, 30 games. So that system did work very well. I think it is still working. It's just a few teething problems this season. But yeah, so that's what you will see from us. You'll see quite an intense style of play. But if we do go ahead or get some sort of foothold in the game, like I said earlier on, we're quite often, quite easily and quite quick to sort of rest on our lead. And you'll slowly see us falling back, which really gets frustrating sometimes.
Hasty retreat to the 6-yard box.
Yeah, it's like trying to protect what you've already got rather than trying to go for the finishing blow quite often. And the longer that happens then in the game, the longer you're holding on to that, the more you see it drop back and the harder it gets. And I think that is one of our biggest problems, really.
Yeah, same, actually, I think. George, I know you've been looking at some of the games we've got coming up and you think we might have enough to get a result on Saturday, but Swansea have got some decent players that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, I think what Luke was saying just then about the fact Swansea seem to just always bottle it at the end of a half and just sort of fall away. I think that probably can play into Saints' hands. We saw it against Wrexham, the other Welsh team that will play at St Mary's this season with the 2 late goals. They've shown that they can go out and do that, but Vipotnik's been in great form, and if he's not having a great game, they've got Amo-Ameyaw to bring onto the pitch. That's 2 strikers that Saints would love to have, especially now with Ross Stewart out injured. Yep. They got Amo-Ameyaw in. I think it was actually quite an expensive deal. So to say Saints should have gone for him, then perhaps maybe not, because he didn't have the best of form up at Celtic before he moved down to Wales. But yeah, there's plenty of quality in that Swansea side. Like Gonçalo Franco is really good in the midfield. I think I picked him up before the game against Swansea in the cup last year, and he did nothing. Tyler Diblin just sort of ran the show in that one. So I'm quite reluctant to actually highlight anyone, because I feel like every time I've done that on Twitter in the live blog, that player has then gone and scored in the game. I think Ollie McBurney did it. Yeah, Nestoria and Kunda did it. So I'm not going to say anyone this time, just in case.
Are you looking forward to the game being back, Steve, after the international break? Be nice to get back at St Mary's and maybe get a nice an early goal would certainly help, I think, on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, especially personally, I missed the Middlesbrough game, so I haven't been to St Mary's since that Dullsville derby game. So looking forward to it. Hoping it's going to be a little bit more open than that game was. I think, from what I've seen of Swansea, they'll come to play. And maybe that works into works into our hands a little bit, makes the game a little bit more open, gives people a little bit more room to express themselves. But then I'm sure Swansea will think the same. If us as a recently relegated Premier League side, we will in most games be expected to make the running, and as a result, that's going to leave holes that certainly other teams like Stoke and Hull have managed to exploit already this season. So yeah, that's ultimately what we've got to be a little bit careful of. And yeah, I mean this mythical sort of clinical finishing. I mean it's just something that we haven't seen for a long time. Even Adam Armstrong 2 years ago when he got 24 goals in the championship. I mean, if he'd been remotely clinical, he'd have got 55.
Yeah.
So it's I mean I still think we're kind of creating enough chances, and it just needs one or two of our attackers to just kind of remember what they're good at, because at the end of the day they are all good players, but. Yeah, I think it's still going to be another one of those games where I think as fans we've got to be a little bit patient. It's not necessarily going to be we're not necessarily going to be sort of right at them from the first whistle. We'll probably ease our way into the game, but I think the team has got to kind of feed off of whatever energy we can give them, and kind of not let Swansea sort of dictate things, because ultimately that's the way they want to play. They want to dictate the game, and we've got to make it as uncomfortable as possible for them.
Glenn, we will get on to the Ross Stewart injury news from this week. We kind of spoke about it a bit last week, but this is an opportunity for somebody else that's going to have to step up, and that I think is probably what worries us the most is this front three come Saturday lunchtime. I don't think any of us would be able to confidently predict who's going to start and who's going to make the most of it.
Well, I mean, it may force a complete formation change. You know, we found a front three that looked lively and looked like it would cause problems, and now we're back to square one with that. So Will Still's had 2 weeks. You know, from the moment Ross Stewart went down, he knew that by the time the Swansea game rolled around, he's had that amount of time to think about it. And to be honest, he's got to get it right, because, you know, we have had games this season where we've either not created or we have created and missed a load, as Steve was alluding to. So, you know, he's got to get that right. And I think this is a very important game for Will Still, because, you know, the last performance, you know, we've had the Pompey derby, which was a damp squib, obviously. In more recent times, we've had the sort of very scratchy win at Sheffield United. At the end of the day, it was 3 points. It's all that matters. But, you know, there were large parts of that game that weren't great. And we had the derby performance last time out, which was, we got a point away from home. But, you know, they were poor. And, you know, we came down to their level, really. And, you know, post-injury. So there's a lot riding on this game for Will Still to get it right. You know, we need a good performance at home. I mean, have we had a good performance at home yet?
No.
Not really.
Not fully. We obviously didn't have very many last year. As a quick glance at the league table will tell you. So, you know, our home fans.
I assumed you were talking calendar year then.
Yeah, well, yeah. It feels like we haven't had a good home performance this century. Is the way it's been going, because it's, you know, having said that, we did obviously have one half decent home performance last year against Swansea in the Cup. Yeah. So we're kind of Swansea's bogey side. At St Mary's, we put them away quite comfortably the last 2 times we played them. I think it was 3 and 5.
But that means we'll be expecting that again on Saturday, surely.
Well, to be honest, I mean, Swansea are a different team now. We're a different team now. Obviously, large turnover of players at both clubs. So,
yeah,
you know, you'd like to think these things follow, but they don't necessarily. Excuse me.
I was going to have to ask you, Luke, just about Russell Martin as well, since you mentioned him, and Matt Gill. I think, is it less spicy now that they've both gone? And you must be absolutely delighted for how it worked out for him.
I mean, it's definitely not going to have the spice that it would have had if he was there 100%. I don't think anyone really looks at this one now and thinks, oh, that's Southampton we're going to play.
Yeah.
I think it was just because he was there and the way that he left. I don't know what it's like with your fan base, but he left a bit of a cult following with him in our fan base to the point that he's just been sacked from Rangers, and you see certain quarters of X putting out there, come home, King, or like, come home, just something or other. And it's just like, we just didn't do anything like under him. I don't understand it personally. I
also saw those. I saw those
beat Cardiff twice.
I just assume it's bots that are coming up with that kind of stuff, because I don't think it can
they're real
be,
people. No, they're real. There's a thing. I think when he was at Swansea, he made this cult following. Like, don't get me wrong, I would have kept him before when he went, and I would have given him another season. There was periods where it looked really good, and I think the second season he was here, he threw his toys out the pram in January based on some transfer stuff that did or didn't happen. We then went on a match run of like 22 games where he won 3. He really could have got sacked, and then gave his head a wobble. He came out in the press and said he gave his head a wobble, basically, and started saying like, I should have done better. I need to get my head back in the game. And then we went and won 7 out of the last 9, drawing the other 2, and missed out on the playoffs by 3 points. Now, if we didn't go on that stupid run of 22 games, 3 wins, we probably would have been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
He then left and went to you because he fell out with the board, right? But like, that's what irritates me, is the fact that he's so like, it's my way or the highway, and so I don't want to say like full of himself, but that's kind of what it is. To the point that he was so in denial about this for so long because he didn't get a certain player, or they sold a certain player in January, that it affected our on-pitch performances. But then so many fans were just buying into this trust the process business. And you still hear it now, and that's what winds me up, to be honest. You've just seen, I don't want to knock you guys, but how he got on with you guys in the Premier League. And that should show that perhaps he wasn't really the person that was correct to take us up, maybe. And then you see what he did at Rangers, and that should reaffirm that that's correct. So, yeah. I don't hate him. It's just everything that comes with it, the baggage.
Just want to mention a couple of players, but obviously Ryan Manning got plenty of abuse last time we played, I think, for the way he left. Someone that might come in or will probably start on Saturday is Nathan Woods. And I think we tried to sign him before, or a year before we actually did. And he had mixed reviews, I think, when we signed him. But actually, the last couple of games for us, he's been a standout performer. So did he always have that talent, did you think?
So Nathan Wood and Ryan Manning both really did well for us under Russell Martin, so it didn't surprise me they both went to Southampton. The whole thing with Ryan Manning was, I think he went on a free, but it was announced in February that he wasn't going to sign on, and then lo and behold, he went with Russell Martin, so it was a bit like, is that a bit dodgy? With Nathan Wood, we should have accepted the fee you offered us the year before that you got him, because I'm pretty sure that was significantly higher.
Yeah, much higher.
He then got and he got quite a bad injury after that rejection. That saw him out for several months. So he had good quality for us. He did really well in the Championship. He never really looked the same player after that injury for us. So when you bought him, he probably was still coming back from that a little bit. So then to go into the sort of the Premier League cauldron of fire on the back of that, where he hadn't fully regained his form, you probably didn't see the best of him straight away. But now we come back down to the Championship, I think he'd be really strong for you at centre-back, and I would imagine you will only continue to get better. There was rumours he was getting linked with the move to Arsenal at one point because of his form with us. So how true that is, I don't know. But if you can get him back to that level, he'll definitely be a top centre-back in the league.
He's been performing well, Steve, hasn't he? And he's pretty much guaranteed that start on Saturday. One of our top performers at the moment from the games that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, he's been, I would say he's been our best centre-back this season. And I mean, let's be frank, there's not been a huge amount of competition. Other individuals have put in occasional sort of good performances game by game. But one thing that Glenn sort of always sort of went on with last season was that we can see that all of these players have individual qualities and they are good players. You don't get to the level you're at without being a really good player. But the key difference for players that can play at the top level is being able to string those performances back to back and putting 3, 4, 5, 6 of those sort of performances, those top level performances in a row. and basically none of them last season could do it. With maybe the exception of Ramsdale, and Ramsdale, who'd obviously been playing at that level for years, and Matty Fernandez, who we then sold for 40 million quid. So it is what it is in terms of our centre backs. You would think that they should be a lot better up against Championship centre forwards, but so far it's not quite proved the case. But I mean, it's still a
different game, isn't it?
It's very, very different type of game. Very different kind of requirements, really, as well. I mean, we are expected to have the ball more often than not, whereas certainly second half of the season last year we weren't. We were expected to have basically none of the ball, and it was like, right, okay, are we going to be able to defend our goal for long enough to squeeze something out of this? And so, yeah, I think Wood is probably the one, as I say, is the one standout so far. And then it's then a case of who is performing to get the position or positions alongside him. I mean, as Glenn said earlier, we don't know whether this Stewart injury necessitates another formation change. So we might be back to a back four again come Saturday. Given that we've obviously had the best part of 2 weeks to prepare for this game, albeit with a few players away on international duty. So yeah, we may see something completely different this week compared to at Pride Park last Saturday. But yeah, centre of defence does still seem to be our main problem. I mean, what we got one clean sheet so far. It's like not really good enough, lads. But it is what it is. We're, as I say, October. We're not out of it by any stretch. I think I can't remember the last time I actually looked at the league table. I'm sure last time I looked, we were like 4 points off third.
Yeah, I think it's still the same now. Yeah, or playoff 4 points off the playoffs or something like that.
Yeah, I mean it's not a.
No one's running with it really.
No,
it's a tight league.
Yeah, it's not a blown season at this point by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, if you remember, this time last year, after 8 games, we had 10 points from 8 games, and we just lost 4 on the bounce and got absolutely hammered in at least 2 of those. So yeah, we're still finding our feet, but it's slow and steady progress, kind of almost a 2-step forward, 1 step back scenario. Hopefully, the 2-step forward comes again this week. That'd be nice.
Well, I'm maintaining this is our 25-game unbeaten run. We just don't know it yet. Just to finish with some predictions, Luke, can I trouble you for a prediction for Saturday, please?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a hard game for Swansea. There's a bit of pressure maybe building on Alan Sheehan. I think they want to see some positive performances, some more goals. But it's not by any means an easy place to go and get a win away at Southampton. You know, if you look at this game before the season started, then we would be thinking this is one of our 3 hardest away games of the year, really. So I think it'd be good if we can come back with a point, if I'm totally honest. And I'm going to go for the easy and sort of sitting on the fence 1-1, I think, in this one.
1-1 draw. Nice one. All right. Thank you, Luke. Thanks for coming on. That was really useful, really insightful. I think we're going to be on your pod later in the week as well. So,
yeah.
Enjoy the weekend, won't you? Send our regards to Snoop Dogg when he's down, and we'll catch up later in the season, if that's all right.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and speak to you again soon.
Nice one. Cheers. Luke.
Cheers.
We did a few predictions last week. I must mention last time on our little predictions league that we do online, it was the Derby game. We had over 140 people that played, 9 correct results, 4 of which predicted the 1-1 draw. Glenn, you're immune from this because we did your prediction last week.
Yeah, I might want to revisit that because I was being madly optimistic, wasn't I? I said we'd win 3. I said we'd win 3-0. So maybe I'll take one off of that and go for 2-0.
Okay, well that's your prerogative. We'll give you that. Steve, it's been a while. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Swansea are the sort of team that is kind of almost a benchmark of mid-table. I think at the moment they're capable of troubling anybody in the division, but they're also capable of being absolutely kind of having their asses handed to them, much as they were when we played them 2 seasons ago. We obviously absolutely battered them at home, but they were they were a competent team for most of that season. So it's not a certainly not a be all and end all, but it's a benchmark game, I think, of a side that we really should be putting away and possibly trying to do it with a relative sense of comfort. I mean, as much as can be done for this set of players. I mean, I still don't fancy us to keep a clean sheet because there's always something. Whether it's an absolutely abomination of a decision by a linesman that causes a player to go into a fit of rage and doesn't kind of do the basics of playing the game, or somebody sort of not picking up their men in the 6-yard box and things like that. We still have
of the above.
We still have the fundamentals to sort out defensively, and I don't think that's going to be a quick fix over a single international break. But I do think that the attacking midfield set that we've got, whichever combination gets selected on Saturday, I think they've got the responsibility to chip in from their positions. So maybe a Cienza or an Azaz or Fellows can get involved and get us among the goals. So a tentative but comfortable 3-1.
Nice. Okay. George, I think you said in the article you wrote during the week that we would probably win 2-1. Are you sticking by that, or would you like to change your mind?
Yeah, I think 2-1's sort of a textbook result for both teams at the minute. As sort of Steve's touched on there, I don't think either side will keep a clean sheet. I don't think either side is going to score a barrel of goals. So it sort of feels like it could be 2-1 sort of either way. Leicester just beat Swansea 3-1 at the Swansea.com stadium. So that's kind of it could be a marker of where Saints are compared to another one of the relegated teams. And Leicester did that after 4 straight draws, but I think they won 2 games before that. So they're probably in a bit of a better run of form. I think we're probably going to come on to it with Ross Stewart, but I just don't see who the player every single week or going into any particular game, you think, oh, he'll get a goal today. I know Adam Armstrong started to sort of pick up goals here and there. So maybe he is that person. We just haven't seen him do it for a run of 10 games yet. But I think that's the worrying thing when you predict any scoreline for Saints at the minute. It's just you don't really see 2 or 3 players who is probably going to score. It's just, is a defender going to randomly chip in with a goal? Is Kasper Jander going to score from 25 yards out or something like that to sort of unlock the game? But yeah, I'll stick with 2-1.
I'd be delighted with the 2-1. If you want to play along, you know how it works. You just need your Patreon login. You'll find the leaderboard and how to play on the website. Just head to totalsaints.co.uk. We will get on to the women's team and their wins, plural, over Portsmouth this week in just a moment. But we need to talk about Ross Stewart. We'd all hoped that the 2 goals in that win over Sheffield United would be the turning point for his career. It was 30 minutes into the 1-1 draw at Derby when he was forced off with another problem. We reviewed the game last week. We were waiting on the outcome of a scan, and the result this week, Glenn, is that it's going to be months rather than weeks, which is kind of the worst case scenario, really, for player and club.
Yeah, I mean, we always suspected that would be the case because he's not the kind of player that does a 1-week injury, is he? And yeah, we shouldn't really be surprised. I mean, there are lots of reasons why this is a massive shame. Firstly, for the player himself, obviously, having worked so, how hard these guys have to work to get fit, and especially when they've had a sort of chronic problem that keeps flaring up. So I always think that must be the worst thing when you get you've done all the work and then you get another injury, having thought you were okay. And it's a shame from a footballing point of view because in that first half an hour against Derby, we found an attacking combination that actually looked dangerous every time the ball went near them, with Cienza and Adam Armstrong sort of either side of him. So it's a shame from that point of view. So we're back to square one there. But my issue with this is the sports science side of the game. All the players have got these little things clipped into the back of their shirts, haven't they, or in the sort of top that they wear under their shirts to sort of like feed back data to various people. And which is why we see some of these bizarre substitutions on 60 minutes where you see someone taken off and you kind of think, well, why has he been taken off? He's playing well. And it's possibly because, he's been, he's not quite as active as he was 5 minutes ago. Let's take him off, sort of thing. So with all these advances in sports science, I find it absolutely astonishing that you've had a player who's been chronically injured for 3 years, basically. And we decide that suddenly we're now going to play in 3 games in a row in a week. So 3 games in 7 days or 8 days. We're now going to play in 3 days. And in Will Steele's defence, he's going to be wanting to play Ross Stewart against Derby because obviously he scored 2 goals in midweek. So I assume he's been asking questions during the week to say, is Ross Stewart okay to go again? Ross himself would have said yes, because that's what footballers do. But I know this is slightly hindsight, but again, thinking about the sports science side of things, someone should have been saying he can't play 3 games in a week. He cannot do it because it's just too much to expect. If you go back to the days before sports science, just common sense would have said it's a lot for this guy to play 3 games in a week. So to me, someone, where's the duty of care there? Where I know this is sort of like top level sport we're talking about. Where's the duty of care to the player there? He needed saving from himself. And it's just, just basically he shouldn't be playing midweek games. He should only be playing. I mean, obviously we're glad he played against Sheffield United because he scored the 2 goals. But having got away with that, and got to the end of the game without getting injured, there's absolutely no way he should have played against Derby, especially as we've got the international break coming up. We should have been able to beat Derby without him. He should have left him on the bench and, used if necessary. But it's just frustrating beyond belief, both, from every point of view, both from the, from the point of view of us as fans wanting to see the forward line clicking, from Will Steele's point of view, because he finally found a combination that looked like it was going to do something, and now he's back to square one. But mainly for the player himself, who's now going to be doing rehab again for another probably 3 months, and he's probably not going to be fit to play again in February and until sort of February. And then you've got the building up process again, where you can't just throw him in and go and do 90 minutes. So it is incredibly annoying that it's happened. And I reckon going into 3 games in a week, there was probably a 95% chance of him getting injured. Given the fragility he's shown over the last 3 years. So it's a real shame, and I hope someone is having a good hard look at themselves about whatever decision was made to allow him to play those 3 games in a week.
I wonder whether it's because there was the international break coming up that they thought.
Yeah, maybe so. And another reason could be that the other options are so terrible. Yeah. They thought they'd take a chance on it, but now you've taken that chance, it's backfired, and now you've got 3 months where you've got to use those terrible options, and or so far terrible options, and try and get a tune out of it. So the gamble, then you shouldn't take gambles with people's health. The gamble was horribly misfired.
Did it feel a bit inevitable, George? They were obviously nursing him through. I know he scored against Arsenal, didn't he? The last game of the Premier League season, and then got a decent sort of pre-season behind him. I think we were all expecting him to start. And bearing in mind, this is someone that was scoring, I think it was a goal every other game for Sunderland not that long ago. And yet he wasn't used sparingly at the start of the season. He only came into the team when we kind of felt like there weren't any other options. So do you think this was maybe in the back of their mind, his mind, that this was going to happen as soon as they started to get him in and give him a run of games?
I don't think so, to be fair, because he had pre-season for what would have been the first time since he joined Saints, and probably his first 2 summers. I remember chatting to him. He's basically spent the last 2 summers previous to this one in training grounds, working hard, trying to get himself fit, and he's had setbacks and stuff along the way. And I think that obviously his injury record is going to make you cautious. It's going to make you think that perhaps you don't want to hang your hopes on him, which is kind of what it felt like they did in the Premier League ultimately, because they didn't have a player other than him of that profile, and he basically wasn't able to play for most of it. When he came in towards the end of the season, he sort of looked all right. I think it's just gutting for him. Every time I've spoken to him, he's been a lovely bloke. It's tough to see him sort of out injured again, and it's probably going to be, as Glenn said there, months until we see him. And is he really going to be able to get going again? Because his career, really, looking at it from the outside, not having sort of watched him when he's played in the lower leagues of Scotland, it feels like he's got himself up to where he is now, just with momentum, scoring goals, climbing through the Scottish divisions, going to Sunderland, getting them promoted, and all that momentum's just been sort of sapped out of his career. He spent more time in doing rehab than he has done playing football, and I think it's got to be tough to keep going when that's happening to you, right? To be going back in now for his next first week of rehab to be starting a new rehab. That's got to be tricky. He's 29. You've got to be thinking, because football careers now, they can go longer. You see certain strikers, they play until they're 40, but I don't think you can do that when you're getting injured all the time. And perhaps that doubt does start creeping in. And then when he comes back from his next injury, does the doubt start creeping in that he's going to stay fit? It's a horrible place for him to be in. And I'm just glad I'm not Will Still having to try and work out what you do next, because none of the options at the minute look like they're going to be able to get the same results as they were getting with Ross Stewart in a really brief period of time where he was able to play.
It is sad, Steve, on a couple of levels, because I think I'm right in saying he's out of contract in the summer as well. So by the time he comes back, or will he be into his final year, he's not got a lot of time left to kind of turn it around and prove himself again. But also you've got the personal aspect that George has highlighted, but also from a point of view of the club and wherever the goal's going to come from, because as Glenn was saying, nothing else has really worked, and you're not going to see Damien Downs chipping in with a hat-trick at the weekend.
Well, who knows? Maybe we are. Stranger things have very much happened.
I don't think they have.
But yeah, I mean, on the Stewart thing, yeah, obviously it's desperately sad to see somebody who's clearly had to work incredibly hard to get fit again on multiple occasions. And yeah, we all thought, oh, okay, is he kind of over this? Are we going to be kind of keeping him in and out of the side, sort of trying to manage his minutes a little bit? And I do think that they basically saw, well, we've got a 2-week break coming up, it'll be fine as long as he can get through. If he can get through an hour, then yeah, jobs are good, and we can do some sort of light sort of work in the gym during the international break. He could take it easy, and it's not going to be a problem. But yeah, obviously then his hamstring's gone ping, and as he's tried that diving header, forcing a decent save from the keeper, and that's him. Yeah, I mean, as these two rightly say, done until at least February, I would say. And I mean, there is a 0% chance that we do not sign another striker at some point between now and the end of January as well. I mean, it's just this injury has obviously highlighted the one very obvious deficiency in our recruitment this summer. Damien Downs, they clearly bought as one for the future, and that's absolutely fine. But if you're hanging your hat on Ross Stewart being your one and only out and out sort of big man centre forward, I mean, you're mental, absolutely batshit mental. From a contract perspective, I think you're right that he's out of contract, but I believe we've got an option for another year. But I guess the question now is, does the club even take that option up? Yeah. Because can you guarantee you're going to get enough game time out of him to make it? I mean, from purely numbers and financial perspective, is it worth the club's while to extend that contract for another year? I mean, I know this. They'll look at it also from an asset protection perspective. They'll protect the value, but what value is there if you can only get 500 minutes a season out of him, and the rest of the time he's in the treatment room, costing you money in rehab costs and scans and all the other stuff that that a long-term injury kind of requires. Unfortunately, there might be someone at the club who says it's just not worth it, lads. And of course, if we go and sign when we go and sign another centre forward,
you're convinced, are you? You're convinced.
I mean, what other option have we got? I mean, unless suddenly Cameron Archer grows 8 inches and can win stuff in the air against massive, ugly championship centre backs, which, I mean, to date he's not. I mean, throughout his career, he's not shown the aptitude of doing. He's a great finisher. If you put the ball in the channels for him, I mean, that's fine. But if we go into games where we're playing Adam Armstrong off the right, which is fine, we've worked out that that's his best position. He can score 20 goals a season from that role, absolutely no problem. But if you're going with a front two or three, and Cam Archer is the guy alongside him, every team is basically just going to sit back 20 yards. They're not going to give us any space in behind, because that's the only way that those two working in tandem are going to be able to score goals on a regular basis. So you need that sort of bigger profile. Clearly Downs was as I say, was bought as one for the future, that we were going to get.
Do you think he was one for the future?
No,
do you think they genuinely thought actually he could come in and hit the ground running?
No, I think they. I mean, you look at the age profile of him, his experience. He's obviously had one season with Cologne in the second tier in Germany. And has done okay. He got 10 goals. That's perfectly respectable. But I do think that their idea was that Stewart would start the season and Downs would be the guy that, when Stewart's tired after an hour, you can rotate him out and Downs comes in. And then midweek games, maybe if Downs has shown something in a sub appearance, he'll get the start, and then they'll be able to rotate between the two. But I still think that they absolutely had designs on Stewart being the main man, and they've just completely misread it and misjudged the situation. And unfortunately, it's looking like it's costing it. It's going to cost us quite dearly over the next probably 2 to 3 months. I mean, at the moment, it doesn't look like anybody is running away with the league. Coventry have scored a lot of goals, but they've also drawn a lot of games. So nobody at the moment is running away with things, unlike 2 years ago. So we're not completely cut adrift, and we're not sort of without any chance of getting into the sort of positions that we think we should be. But Will Still's going to have to find a solution very, very quickly. And as much as people, and I kind of include myself in this, I don't particularly like that we're going to have to hang our hat on him. But Damien Downs is going to have to play a lot of minutes in these next 3 months, because he's the only guy that is big. Unless you suddenly decide that. Well, Taylor Harwood-Bellis has been so bad as a centre back. Why not shove him as a centre forward? I mean, it's an option.
It was only a couple of weeks ago, though, we were saying, Damien Downs should be in the under-21s or just taken out the team for his own protection, because that was cruel playing him in the Derby game.
You can't play him again. You can't play him again unless you're pretty sure that he's not going to embarrass himself again. The last 2 appearances he's put in have been awful, and I agree he was probably brought in as one for the future, but you've got to at least offer something now, even if it's in a bench appearances. And I remember saying at the start of the season we should start with Stewart and see how he gets on, and then when he inevitably needs to come out of the team for an injury, then you hopefully Downs has got up to speed a little bit. But they've decided to ignore my wisdom and go a different way, and it hasn't quite worked. And so, yeah, I mean, Stewart's got injured and he's had to come out of the team. So, but is Downs ready to step in? I mean, on the evidence of the last 2 performances, absolutely not. So, I think Cam Archer has to step up, and they have to find a way of getting him the ball in an area that where he can be dangerous. I mean, I've seen people talking about, we need to have 2 up front. If you have 2 right up the pitch, one of them needs to be, a more physical type of player, like every other team in the Championship has. So, I mean, if you just played Armstrong and Archer up front, that wouldn't work. There's just no way that would work. So, yeah, you have to find an option from somewhere. And people have talked about, again, another hindsight thing, Don Ballard scoring goals for Leyton Orient. Yeah, it's a different level. It's a completely different level.
Well, and I mean, look at his physical profile as well. He's no bigger or stronger than what we've got.
Yeah, I mean, you could go back to the start of last season when we signed Cameron Archer, and I just thought, well, that's an Adam Armstrong copy, and it is really. Yeah. It's the same sort of profile of players, both good at the same things, both poor at the same things, and it's difficult to get both of those in the side, based on the evidence of what we've seen so far. But I do think if he wants to stick with the same formation, he has to pick Cameron Archer, and he just has to do better. And that's in terms of him doing better, and in terms of us feeding them the ball in better areas to try and, so we've got Because if we use him like we've used him in the previous games, we've got the cutting edge of a spoon, haven't we? And it ain't gonna work.
All eyes on that team sheet on Saturday lunchtime then. Let's chat about the women's team and let's finish with that because that is a huge positive. And George, you were there for the game today. The women's team coming back from being 2-0 down to beat Portsmouth 5-2 at Fratton Park. This is coming off the back of the winning the cup during the week as well. I read your story today about the fact that Pompey were contending with the club's worst injury crisis in a decade. And then I noticed that we were 2-0 down after 20 minutes. And I was putting that squarely on you. But I'm pleased to say that they managed to turn it around. And what a game and what a result.
Yeah, it's quite funny, actually. We're talking about sort of the striker problem that the Saints men's team have got. The women's team have got quite a similar one in a minute. Because they had Meg Collette, who's usually a right back or at times a right wing when she needs to be. She was leading the line today. And it kind of felt like for most of the game, she's not a striker. So they were sort of struggling to get her into goal scoring positions, although she almost scored after, I think it was 7 seconds into the game. And then suddenly they totally fell apart at the back. They conceded a terrible corner where it's just sort of gone straight to the person at the near post and straight into the goal. Then they score. Pompey scored directly from a corner, and within 20 minutes they find themselves 2-0 down. But in fairness, they got much better after they went 2-0 down. Abby Ferguson got a brilliant solo goal, nutmegged one player. I think she may have even put it through the keeper's legs. Then the game sort of, it was nothing for half an hour, and then suddenly Saints go and get 4 goals in the second half to win 5-2. And it's pretty much, I think it's just short of a year to the day they won 5-0 at Fratton Park. And now they've gone and won 5-2, which perhaps shows that Pompey are a little bit better now, but it also shows that Saints still know how to score. And I think the game they won 5-0 last time was possibly the only time they scored 3 or more goals in that championship season. And they've already done that previously in this season under Simon Parker. So it seems like he's doing quite well. They're up to 3rd with that win. So yeah, more promotion spots. Hopefully they can keep it going, but it's still ridiculously early in the season, isn't it?
They only scored 22 goals in 20 games last season. They've already got 16 this, with 2 4s and a 5. So yeah, they've worked out a way to at least get more goals scored, even if they're leaving themselves a little bit open at the back. But it's interesting that the manager changes with this team, and yet the sort of constant rotation of teams of the lineup for even sort of for big games continues. So you've had like Tara Bourne sat on the bench from the start today, who was in the England under 23s, I think, last season. And you think, well, surely you in a game like this. I mean, yes, okay, we know that Pompey's budget at this level is nowhere near ours. So yeah, by all rights, we should be winning that game comfortably. But it is a derby game. It is a big game for the fans, a big game for both clubs. Surely you put your best. I mean, obviously you mentioned with the injury situation, the striker situation is a little bit sort of fluid at best. But surely you pick your best. You pick your best players as and when they're available. I found that selection very strange.
Yeah, I was in agreement, to be fair. I was quite surprised.
And they've got an international break coming up. Is that right? I think.
Yeah, they've got one more game against Brighton in the League Cup, and then it's after the international break after that, I think. They're usually 2 weeks apart for the men and the women in this period of the season.
It is early days, Glenn, but it does seem like a much improvement and performances from last season.
Yeah, hugely. Some of the players they've signed look to have made a big impact as well.
Great goals as well.
The two women they signed from Hibs, I think it's Mickey McAloney and Abby Ferguson. They got 2 goals each today. They've been sort of like impressive in sort of all the games that I've seen bits of. So I'm a bit of a loss really how they Hibs won the Scottish Premier League last year, and there obviously must be more money in the English game for them to come down to a WSL2 side from a team in Scotland who have won the league. So that seems to have been a very good bit of recruitment, which is something we moaned about last year, especially in the second half of the season when we were just signing
loans,
youngsters,
wasn't it?
Just loan youngsters. And one of the things I've been impressed with the manager this year is that there's a few players out of our academy I see Izzy Watts played today. She's another one who's come out of the academy. She's probably ridiculously young. They all are, but she's playing games now, and that's that's good. So we're playing our youngsters instead of other people's, which is always good, and still managing to get results. But I mean, from what I've seen this year, it's much more encouraging. It's much more entertaining. Yes, we seem to let in some poor goals. The goalie Fran Stenson is usually very good. Usually very good, but she let in one she weren't particularly proud of today. Defensively we're letting goals, but that doesn't matter if you've got a goal threat at the other end and you can stick the ball in the net. So it makes for much more entertaining games, and you always feel like you've got a chance of winning, which hasn't always been the case over the last year or so. So fair play to them, and hopefully they can keep going and keep this form going when they play better teams. Obviously, you're not going to score 5 goals every week, but there's a lot of teams up near the top of that league that are all much of a muchness, and it's going to be a very tight league. It always is. So you've got to win enough of the games against the good teams to keep yourself in a contention. And hopefully with the new rules they can and the new number of teams that go up this year
changes.
Hopefully they can keep themselves in contention for the whole season, and we don't have a completely dead half of the season like we had last year.
Absolutely, and well said. And obviously, scoring 5 goals at Fratton Park is always fun. So
absolutely,
we'll celebrate that. So the international break's almost over. Steve, were you at Wembley for the game since you're on?
Yeah, I mean.
You're one of the people that Thomas Tuchel had a problem with.
Probably because I left with 15 minutes to go.
George was hoping we ran out of time and wouldn't have to talk about this game. But,
I thankfully didn't watch it. I was on a plane.
In fairness, we were very, very good first 20-25 minutes. Wales just defensively I think all 3 goals were loosely from set pieces, if not directly. And just the organisation at the back. I mean, the second one, Watkins he's a yard from goal, and he's had time to control it and then finish on the second touch. That shows how lax the Welsh defending is. I mean, I know they've got this weird sort of hex over Belgium, sort of over the last sort of 10 years or so. But I mean, if Belgium turn up and play anything like they're capable of, Wales ain't going to have a prayer tomorrow night. So it always felt like a weird game for the FAW to accept when the not only just when it was arranged, but obviously like looking at it now specifically, because you've got the Belgium game coming a few days later. This is basically your win and in, really, I think, for Wales. But if they don't win it, they'll probably have an opportunity in the playoffs. But the problem is now, having played a genuinely good team that England are, regardless of what people like to sort of bash the team with, we're a genuinely good team now. We're a competitor. I don't necessarily think we're going to win the World Cup in hot American conditions, where you've got South American teams who are going to be more used to the conditions. But in terms of like European tournaments, we should be there or thereabouts kind of every year now, I think. But Wales playing against a team like that, what happened on Thursday night was always a possibility. At any time when you play a team like that, things go well for the good team if they knit stuff together. The weaker side can't live with it, and as a result of Wales losing that game, they're now likely to be, assuming they end up in the playoffs, they're likely to be in pot 2. So they're now going to have a tougher draw through the playoffs. Whereas if there weren't that many teams available to play. And obviously, because of Wales and Switzerland gaming the system years ago with the rankings, FIFA and UEFA now insist that you do play in every match opportunity. But they could have played. They could have played Moldova. They could have played a friendly against Moldova, get an easy 2-3-0 win, and your ranking points are safe. Whereas they've now played England, taken a pasting, lost of confidence defensively, Kiefer Moore got booted around. He basically got shown up for the level that he was. John Stones and Mark Gehi were like, what's this? There was just no threat there at all. And yes, there's now you've now got a team that's low on confidence going into basically effectively a qualifying final from their perspective, I think. And yeah, they're going to be low in confidence, and they've made it harder for themselves, I think.
It's all about tomorrow night, though, right, George?
Yeah, it is. So I think Steve just said it there that we've sort of got a hex over Belgium, but our 21s did get pumped 8-0 by them the other day. So I don't know. I'm really hoping that's not some sort of magic hex reverser, which is gonna sort of remove our ability to play well against Belgium. Obviously, they drew their last game against North Macedonia, who I think people are probably writing off as a team who could actually win the group
at the moment
because they're top of the group. I know we've played one game less than them, and so have Belgium. So in theory, one of us wins that game and goes above them. But Wales have still got to play against them. And going back to also what Steve said there about we could have played against Moldova. We did play Gibraltar a year ago and drew 0-0, although that was a squad of League One players. But yeah, I was just glad, to be honest, because I saw it was 2-0 when I got on my plane to come back from my holiday, and obviously put the phone on airplane mode and stuff. And as soon as we landed, I sorted my data back to get on my UK sim rather than the abroad one, and I saw it was still 3-0. I saw it was 3-0, and I thought I had to refresh it a few times because I thought it was still sort of stuck. So yeah, I was pleased it was only 3 in the end.
Fair enough. You're not going this week, are you, Steve? Are you heading away?
Yeah, I've got a flight out to Riga first thing tomorrow morning. So yeah, that'll be fun. Be a bit colder out there, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, winning in now.
Make sure you bring the noise.
Should be pretty comfortable. Well, I mean, one thing with this whole atmosphere thing, Wembley's never been good for atmosphere. Very rare. It's so rare that you get a game at Wembley where the atmosphere is excellent for England games. Club games, yeah, absolutely fine, because it's generally split 50-50. It's a cup final. There's something really riding on the game. There was literally nothing riding on that game on Thursday. Yeah. And not only that, the game was effectively over after 20 minutes. The atmosphere in the first half was absolutely fine. The atmosphere second half, genuinely a lot of people left at half time. Literally, like, absolute true story. A friend of mine said before the game, I'll probably stick around for about an hour or so, probably go when it's about 2-0 or so. That'll be it. He did go at 2-0. He kept his word.
And his word.
Drove back to Coventry at after 11 minutes. But it's the problem is that you play these friendlies and you play them at Wembley. Like a third or more of the home support is coming from up north, and you're asking them to take days off work, pay the money on transport, whether it's petrol, trains, hotels, whatever. And people have had enough of it. It's nothing to do with what they're seeing on the pitch. Like people those of us who went to Belgrade for the Serbia game, brilliant, absolutely superb, great team performance. Everybody was really happy. And you're kind of when you see kind of everything come together like that, you can then kind of put to the back of your mind what happened at the City Ground in June with that god-awful Senegal game. And people have short memories. If you're winning games, people are going to be happy. But when the manager comes out slagging off the fans, I mean, you're going to need the support in the US when we're going to be likely to be massively outnumbered by basically all the South American teams. And anybody who's sort of within sort of relatively easy flying distance, like anybody in Central America's, sort of East Asia, that sort of thing, we're going to be hugely outnumbered. And yeah, kind of slagging off the people that effectively pay your wages, I never think ends well. But ultimately, Tuchel doesn't have a meaningful home game again to come as England manager, because he's almost certainly going to be walking away after the World Cup, regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
And the Serbia game next month is already a dead rubber because we're going to win on Tuesday night, and that's the end of it. So there's nothing riding on that game. There's nothing riding on. We'll have 2 home friendlies in March, and that's it. 2 warm-up games before the tournament will be probably over in America. So it's just like, well, why did you need to say that? Just felt like such an unnecessary thing to say when the teams generally played really well over the evening. It's really, really bizarre.
Odd. Very odd. Well, safe travels anyway. Enjoy the game, and I hope it's a good one. Thank you for joining us tonight. Don't forget you can follow Total Saints Podcast on all the social media platforms. Just have a search for @Total Saints Pod. You can also check out the merch store which we've got going on. It's shop.totalsaints.co.uk. I also mentioned at the start we're on Patreon. That's where you can support the podcast with your monthly contribution. You just visit patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. Each of the tiers comes with some different perks, including shout outs for Patreons in our Francis Benali and our Mick Shannon tiers. So thank you to Dave Melton, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Gavin Ford, James Harron, Nicky Nicholson, Peter Montalabo, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer, James Kibbe, Red 76 Tax, Michael Blackmer, and David Mansell. They're in our Francis Benali tier. Also, thank you to Nick Reed, Dave Ernsberg, and Nick Hingston, Phil Cook, Jonathan Cooper, Cole Baker, Anthony Thompson, Matt Hall, Mike Etheridge, Phil Horstrup, Mark Littlewood, James Bobin, John Bevan, Frank Thorpe, John Peacock, and Andy. They're all in our Mick Shannon tier. Thank you as well to Paul Castle Associates and Steamtown Brewery for sponsoring TSP this season. Thank you to Steve, to George, and to Glenn. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.